NFL news yesterday that caught the world's attention, and I understand why when you see big numbers for people who haven't done anything in the NFL. That's exactly the way I feel about this Trevor Lawrence contract. I know what you're going to say already. You've got a 3-word phrase that I almost made a T-shirt yesterday, brought it in and handed it to you. What's the alternative?
Well, it's the alternative, in my opinion, is to not give these guys $55 million a year. Can you give them a little less? Okay, you want to lock them up? Fine. We have to give Trevor Lawrence the same amount of money as Joe Burrow? These guys are not even close to being the same player. This is out of control now. It's gotten out of control. Good for you, Trevor Lawrence. Your first year, you stunk. Second year, okay. Third year, you stunk. You were hurt, and you get $55 million a year? Holy hell. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Yeah, well, thanks for rubbing it in. It just makes me realize that I'm 35 years old. Too old. 35 years too old. I would have liked to have participated in some of the stuff that's going on these days. But, they didn't have to pay him right now because they picked up his fifth-year option. They could have made him play this year, and then they would have had to guarantee next year's contract by picking up that option, and then they could have given him a new contract next year. But that's not the way it's going in the NFL. And quite frankly, meeting and seeing Trevor Lawrence out there in Las Vegas when we did.
Yeah.
I was talking to him a little bit and everything. He seems like he's a really good kid. I mean, he's a ginormous athlete. I mean, he is huge.
Yeah.
So, they see him every day. They're around him every day. And I know the numbers are not great. I mean, he's got more touchdowns than interceptions for sure. He makes most of the games. Plus, at the end of last year, he did play hurt. Like, he did not, sit down on the team. He didn't quit on the team. He actually put himself in harm's way to try to get the team into the playoffs. So all of that goes into it, and they're around him, obviously more than we are, and they see him every single day. So they believe in him. They trust in him. And if he goes out there and he has a great year this year, that means they'll have to pay him even more money next year if they would have waited. So this is kind of like the way the NFL is going with these quarterback contracts, and I'm thinking next has got to be Tua, and then Dak Prescott needs a contract extension. Right. I mean, it's going to go on and on and on and on and on.
Okay. So Tua had a great year last year. He was in the MVP.
And a much better year than Trevor Lawrence did.
He was in the MVP discussion. He is someone also who had been hurt, and I didn't think he would get a contract like this, but it would make more sense to me if he did than Trevor Lawrence. You mentioned, who else did you mention in that group there? Dak Prescott, who all he does is go to the playoffs. Yes, he doesn't advance in the playoffs very much.
He puts up huge numbers.
Huge numbers. The offense is always tops in the league, and they're always competing in the NFC in the postseason.
Well, just so you know, Dak Prescott is scheduled to make $55 million this year already. Oh, so now it's a contract extension he's looking for.
Oh my God!
Now,
but those guys, I could make a better case. With Trevor Lawrence, I just can't. It just doesn't. It doesn't make sense to me that they had to do this now. And in the Daniel Jones contract, he was coming off of a playoff win and his best season, and he stayed healthy and he played his best game. And then obviously they got killed by the Philadelphia Eagles. But he was making $40 million, not $55 million.
Well, hold on now. So in order of the biggest cap hits in the NFL this upcoming season, according to Spot Track,
yes,
number one is Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, which is right.
Right. So again, to me, that's who I'm comparing all this to. But Deshaun Watson is 63, almost 64 million. Then Dak Prescott at 55 million. Then Matthew Stafford at 49 million. Kyler Murray at 49 million, and Daniel Jones at 47 million. Now that's the projected cap hits for this coming year. Now, a lot of these contracts have guaranteed money up front, signing bonuses, roster bonuses, and then obviously, their paychecks throughout the season. The total cash for this year, Jared Goff is going to make $80 million. Joe Burrow is making $65 million. Kirk Cousins is making $62 million. Justin Herbert, $56 million. And Deshaun Watson, $46 million. So there's cap hits that are tied to bonuses and things that players have already received. And then there's the cash that the players are receiving this season. And according to Spot Track right there, Jared Goff will be receiving the most money in this season.
All right, I'm going to give you a player A, player B situation here. All right?
All right.
You ready for this? You got a pen over there?
Yeah,
you got something to write on?
What the hell happened to all the pens we had?
Well, here's a pen here.
What happened to these pens?
I don't know. People take them.
Al, you got a piece of paper, Al?
We got a piece of paper. We don't have no. We used to have a ton of paper in here and a ton of pens, and now we got nothing.
I don't know what's going on. I have no idea.
Al's got a piece of paper. Thank
you
very much.
Player A and player B.
We're going to do a player A, player B situation. Here's a Sharpie.
I have a Sharpie.
Okay, good. Player A, player B.
Okay.
Player A, player B. All right. Player A.
Yes.
50 games played.
50 games.
Player B, 60 games played. Let's just, so we know that player B's played 10 more games. All right?
But well, of course. I mean, it's player B, and he has played 60 games.
All
okay.
Right. All right, ready?
I'm writing all this down.
All right, their record.
Yes.
Player A, 20, 30, and 0.
20, 30, and 0. That means he has no ties. Okay.
All right, player B, 22, 36, and 1.
22, 36, and 1.
All right, player A, 63.8 completion percentage.
63.8, okay.
Player B, 64.3.
64.3.
All right, pass yards.
Yes.
Player A.
Player A.
11,770.
11,770.
Player B, 12,512.
Okay.
And just one more. We'll do passes. We'll do TDs and interceptions, and we'll stop.
TDs to interceptions.
All right. So we got 58 TDs for player A.
Yep.
62 for player B.
62 for player B.
And we've got 39 picks for A.
Mm-hmm.
And 40 for B.
All right. So basically, they're pretty much very close. But the biggest there's really not that much of a difference. Player A is Trevor Lawrence. Player B is Daniel Jones.
You got it.
Yeah.
And we did not talk about this.
No, we did not.
We did not talk about this before the show.
Yes.
But there you go. And look at this. You've got CBS Sports Network all over this as well. Now, this was something that was on social media in the offseason before this contract is what made me think of it. But, I mean, wow.
Wow. Again, it's how the player is perceived in the building is what it is. So Daniel Jones was perceived at a very high level, albeit they weren't going to commit 5 years and $200 million to him. They only committed, $82 million guaranteed to Daniel Jones. So it was kind of like I'll meet you at a halfway point. Daniel Jones's contract was a halfway point. Trevor Lawrence's contract is commensurate with the other top quarterbacks in the league who've gotten paid.
All right, so let me ask you, if Trevor Lawrence wasn't drafted number 1 overall, he didn't have the success he had at Clemson in college, and put together this resume in his first 3 years, is he getting this contract?
No.
Right, so,
But he was drafted number 1 overall. He did go to college.
But he hasn't done anything in the league is the point.
Well, the point being, as I told you, so Doug Peterson, first of all, you got to throw the first year out with Urban Meyer. You got to throw that out.
We're throwing out a full year.
You got to throw it out.
We're throwing out a full year then.
That was his rookie year. It was an unmitigated disaster, and that's not his fault.
Okay.
That's Shad Khan's fault, the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, for hiring Urban Meyer to run a professional football team. Urban's a great college coach, great college analyst, just not a pro-worthy head coach. And, you don't understand how that really impacts the quarterback, of course, and it was not a good place for him to start.
All right.
So now in comes Doug Peterson. He's got him for 2 years. He's gotten better each of the 2 years. And quite frankly, he is the face of that franchise. Whether you like it or not, or I like it or not, it doesn't matter. He is the face of the franchise.
But do you have to pay him $55 million a year that is commensurate with the top players in the game when he's done nothing?
Well, the last 2 years he's gotten better. And like I told you last year, he probably played at least 4 or 5 games where he was significantly hurt and probably shouldn't have been out on the field.
Well, this is the way I felt about the Daniel Jones contract as well. It's like, okay, you had to sign him at the end of that season. Did you have to give him $40 million a year? Maybe not. You should have called the bluff. No one else was going to sign him.
By the way, in comparison to the other quarterbacks around the league, the Daniel Jones contract doesn't look that bad. Because they can get out of it after this year if, in fact, Daniel either gets hurt again or doesn't play well or the offense doesn't play well. Of course, Brian Daboll is going to be looking for another quarterback, And by the way, with the Giants and Daniel Jones, there's been a lot of smoke around him this offseason.
Yeah.
And usually smoke equals fire, and they're going to see if they can get that fire in his belly going to see if he can get himself back to where he was 2 years ago.
Yes, and he was in a similar situation a couple of years ago and excelled in it. He's just really, health is going to be the huge thing with him, just like everybody else. But if he could play a full 17 games, that's gonna help his cause. But I just think there has to be a. We've talked about pitchers in baseball and the bubble bursting on those markets and how guys should not be getting $40 million a year to be a starting pitcher. I mean, there are quarterbacks who absolutely deserve this money. I think Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow's got to come back and be healthy. But guys like that, you can make a case, are underpaid.
In August of 1987, I signed a new contract, 5 years, $6 million, $1.2 million a year, $75,000 per game, and that was the year that I was an NFL PA rep for the Cincinnati Bengals, and we went on strike. Mm-hmm. And we missed 4 game checks. So basically, I missed $300,000 worth of game checks.
Yeah.
Put it all on the line to get us to where we are today. It started with Plan B, then it was free agency, and then all of a sudden they started looking at media rights deals, and guys like our buddy Hans Schroeder and people like that within the NFL have figured out ways to create even a bigger pie by slicing and dicing the schedule, and all these guys are benefiting from it. I'm
not begrudging anybody in that way. I don't want to be misunderstood. There are guys I just mentioned. I think like Patrick Mahomes is a guy that I think is underpaid. There's certain people that should be getting this money. It almost feels like there's like this groupthink thing with these owners and these general managers.
Look at the wide receivers. Look what they're getting.
Yeah, but why? Some of these guys are productive. I mean, Justin Jefferson, before getting hurt last year, was on pace to break every record that Jerry Rice had.
Look at the edge
Trevor Lawrence hasn't done anything.
Look at the left tackles. Look at the edge rushers. Look at the cornerbacks. But they're all getting. A lot of guys are getting paid.
My point is, though, that those guys have a resume.
Yes.
Trevor Lawrence does not.
Most important player on the team is the team that is the player that the team looks up to, and that's the quarterback. And this obviously has got to be, another year where Trevor continues to improve and get his team to the playoffs. I mean, he's close. He's close. He got
into the playoffs the year prior.
That's right. But
they won a playoff game.
The one thing I will say is that watching him play football compared to Zach Wilson is like night and day. I mean, it's like two completely. Wow. I mean, and Zach was drafted right after him. Look at what Zach
to
Wilson,
the stone worst quarterback.
I know, but look at what Zach Wilson has lost. Look what Sam Darnold has lost. I mean, all these guys that were drafted in the top 5, and look at where they are now. Now, they're still playing, and they still have opportunity, but this is what, when you're drafted that high, and whether it be this year's group, Drake May and Caleb Williams and Michael Penix and Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels, all these guys, This is what they have to look forward to in 3 years. If they can keep their heads on straight and they can turn out to be pretty damn good players where these franchises believe in them.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that Shad Khan and Doug Peterson and that group down there in Jacksonville see Trevor Lawrence and compare him to some of the top quarterbacks in the league. They believe that they got the face of their franchise for the next 10 years.
I mean, I could sit here and do, player A, player B with Sam Darnold and Trevor Lawrence, and it looks similar. I mean, this is my point. I mean,
it's perception of a player and how somebody. So for 2 years, Doug Peterson is your head coach, and for 2 years, you're trying to save money because the salary cap's going to continue to go up. Guys are going to continue to get paid, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Tua down in Miami. That's the big one. Dak is going to get his money eventually.
Yeah, it might not be from the Cowboys. That's the interesting thing.
I don't know. That's even crazier. I mean, what is the alternative for the Cowboys?
I mean, maybe they say, it depends on what's going on in the draft. Someone shakes available that they didn't expect. I mean, that's a tough thing to say right now, what the alternative is. But maybe when they get to that point, they'll have an answer to that. But, I mean, I was shocked that they gave Trevor Lawrence this contract now. You said it was the first thing out of your mouth. They didn't have to do it right now.
Because they picked up his 5th-year option.
Didn't have to do it.
So
and Daniel Jones' 5th-year option wasn't picked up when he was in a similar situation.
But they have to figure something out. In other words, they have to plan for the future, and spending a little bit more money now in terms of signing bonus and things like that, and making the player happy and. Now you don't have to worry about the quarterback for the next 6 years.
Well, yeah, you do. You got to worry if he's any good.
Well,
all right. If you're the general manager of the Jacksonville Jaguars, you giving Trevor Lawrence this deal this offseason?
If I was?
Yeah.
It all depends on what I believe the future of other players on my roster is going to be and whether or not I'm going to have to pay them. And, now is the time to do it. After 3 years, have you seen enough of Trevor Lawrence to believe that he is going to be your starting quarterback?
Okay, then I'm asking you that question.
I've seen enough that he can be the starting quarterback without question.
That gets paid like the top 3 in the league?
Again, we'll see it now as the top 3 in the league, and 3 years from now, it will probably be the 10th highest paid player in the league.
Oh, okay, and he still wouldn't have earned it. I mean, depending on how he plays, I guess.
Listen, so the interesting thing about Dak Prescott, okay, his record is 73-41. He has completed 67% of his passes. He's thrown for almost 30,000 yards, 202 touchdowns, and 74 interceptions.
I mean, if you took the name off of that, you would look at that and be like Hall of Fame numbers.
Yes,
you really would.
I know you would.
Yeah,
it's just that he plays for the Cowboys, and it all comes down to it's like the Yankees. Do you win the championship or don't you?
Yeah, and they've had some great offenses there, and he never gets the credit.
And remember, he was a 4th-round draft pick. Mm-hmm. He wasn't a top 5, so he had to earn every bit of what he has got.
Yeah, and he had to, dethrone a very popular player there in Tony Romo. Romo got hurt, but Dak Prescott made the most of that opportunity. He didn't lose a game during that time.
I've had nothing but respect for his career back when he was at Mississippi State, as Al knows. Yeah, and he went into LSU and virtually beat the Tigers by himself.
Yeah, and he
ever
is.
Since that time, he's done nothing. I know Cowboy fans could be rough. I know football fans in general could be rough. But you could do a hell of a lot worse than having him as your starting quarterback.
Right. You could have Trevor Lawrence.